set now. We'll do more like this. Tim?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town of Islip Planning Board for Wednesday, September 4th, 2024. Just if you're here for item 6 on the agenda, family residences, that item will not be heard this evening. It's been adjourned. We'll let you know when there is a new hearing on that. So item 6 has been adjourned, will not be heard this evening. Would everyone please stand for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God. If I could just ask everyone to please observe a moment of silence. Our fellow board member, Tim Mattimore, passed away recently. He was sort of dedicated to the residents of this town for a long time, dedicated his service to this planning board, sort of the unofficial historian of all things that happened in the town of Islip. Thank you. If you're here tonight as an applicant, we remind you to keep your presentations to 30 minutes or less. We will let you know if you're getting close to that time. If you're a member of the community who would like to speak, there are yellow cards on the side. Please fill one out and hand it to the staff. We'll call you up during those public hearings. We ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, and again, we'll keep track of time. That being said, first item on the agenda, site plan modification, public hearing. Michael Broxmeyer, SP 2023-063, southeast corner of Veterans Memorial Highway, State Route 454, and Wheeler Road, State Route 111, Hauppauge, 700-800 Veterans Memorial Highway. Applicant requests a parking relaxation in connection with a change of use of an existing suite from commercial office to behavioral analyst therapy, medical office. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the board. My name is Hansley Mohan of Brown, Altman, and DeLeo, with offices at 538 Broad Hollow Road, Suite 301 West, Melville, New York, 11747. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant and property owner. I'd also like to note that with me tonight is Ethan Chikoski of Atlantic Traffic and Design, the project's traffic expert. Mr. Chikoski is available to answer any questions that the board may have with respect to the parking relaxation requested tonight. Just as a bit of background, the property is comprised of a multi-building office park located at the southeastern corner of Route 111 and Veterans Memorial Highway. The site is located within the town's Business 2 zoning district. The office park includes a 4-story building with an 18,293 square foot footprint, a 2-story building with a 5,460 square foot footprint, and a 4-story building with a 10,793 square foot footprint. The 3 buildings are identified as 700, 750, and 800 Veterans Memorial Highway, respectively. The area surrounding the property is comprised of commercial and residential uses. To the north of the property, across Veterans Memorial Highway, is a law firm. To the west of the property, across Route 111, is the Hauppauge Plaza, which consists of a Duck Donuts, Dollar Tree, and sushi restaurant. Northwest of the property are several strip malls that include a Five Guys, hair salon, Mexican restaurant, urgent care facility, and more. Northeast of the property is the Hauppauge High School. Directly east of the property is the Residence Inn Hotel, and abutting the property to its south are multiple residential properties. According to the town's building division certificate, the property has been improved with at least 1 commercial office building since circa 1982. The second and third office buildings were constructed in 1985 and 1987, respectively. A copy of the building division certificate for the property has been submitted as Exhibit 1 for your reference. To provide some context, on September 15, 2016, a public hearing was held before the Town Planning Board for a parking relaxation to permit a total of 362 parking stalls, where a minimum of 366 stalls were required. On September 27, 2016, the Planning Board issued a letter approving the requested parking relaxation. A copy of the 2016 Planning Board approval has been submitted as Exhibit 2 for your reference. In 2023, the applicant sought to replace the existing office tenant in the 750 building with a new medical use tenant. The subject unit, Unit 2-100, is approximately 3,221 square feet in size. Under the required parking calculation for commercial offices at 1 stall per 200 square feet, a total of 16 parking stalls was required for the existing office tenant. Under the medical use parking calculation, which requires 1 stall per 150 square feet, the same tenant now requires a total of 21 parking stalls. Accordingly, the proposed change of tenant increases the total parking requirement for the property by only 5 stalls. Following submission of the change of tenant application, the town advised Bowler, the project engineer, that a new parking relaxation would be required. On September 1st, 2023, our office electronically submitted a site plan modification application to the town's engineering department seeking to slightly modify the previously granted parking relaxation. Given such a de minimis increase to the overall parking requirement, we had originally anticipated that the town would process the application administratively. Unfortunately, we were advised by the town engineering department that the instant application required a complete recalculation of the parking requirement for the entire office park. While we initially disagreed with the need to perform such an exhaustive effort for an increase of only 5 parking stalls, we ultimately complied with the engineering department's requirement and submitted the application for the board's consideration. According to the site plan prepared by Bowler, the property requires a total of 625 parking stalls, whereas the property currently provides a total of 376 stalls, including 10 ADA stalls. A copy of the site plan prepared by Bowler has been submitted as Exhibit 3. Given the unique circumstances involving this application, such as the 2016 Planning Board approval, we submit that the requested parking relaxation will not produce an undesirable change to the character of the area. Despite the discrepancy between the parking stall requirement noted in the 2016 approval and the current site plan, the property has historically provided sufficient parking to satisfy the observed demand. While the proposed tenant change does increase the parking requirement by a mere 5 stalls, we note that such de minimis change will not adversely affect the surrounding area. As part of the instant application, Atlantic Traffic and Design was retained to prepare a traffic letter report to analyze the total parking demand at the property. A copy of the report has been submitted as Exhibit 4. As stated on page 4 of the report, Atlantic Traffic observed that during the peak parking demand, a total of only 298 parking stalls were occupied. Based on available data, Atlantic Traffic anticipates that the parking demand will increase by merely 3 parking stalls with the new tenant in place. Given that the property currently provides a total of 376 parking stalls, the report concludes that the property will continue to accommodate the projected parking demand at the property. Further, 75 parking stalls will also be available as a reserve in the event that the demand increases during these peak hours. Accordingly, Atlantic Traffic found that the proposed parking relaxation will not have a significant negative impact on site parking, site circulation, or traffic flows on the adjacent roadways. At this time, we welcome any questions that the board may have with respect to the application.
Thank you. We'll go to public hearing, and then staff report will come back for questions.
We have one speaker tonight, Bureau, Emmerich, and Edit.
It's hard to tell on this.
Good afternoon. Sorry, we're new at this, so we don't know the formalities. We received this notice, and we just wanted to make a request. If this request is approved for relaxation of the parking lot, we live on 33 Grissom Way, which is our property is right at the border of the parking and the one of the buildings. So basically, I could almost like go over my property and touch the building. And I'm not sure, but I always thought that that property was supposed to put up some barriers between the 2 property lines for visibility purposes. And we're just concerned that with the additional traffic, that
basically you're changing the office building to a medical building, with some kind of, I'm not sure what was it here. Basically, it's changing to a medical building, so we would like to have some more privacy included in there, because right now there's no privacy between our backyard and the building. If somebody
and
sits
the parking lot.
exactly, if somebody sits out in their window in the office, they could see anything they want in our backyard.
So there are no plantings between your property and the parking stalls or any,
Half
Solid
only,
fence.
only half.
Yeah, and whatever there used to be like these humongous trees have grown, I guess, in 20 years to the point that I don't even know, it may be even a danger to the building itself. So if they could provide some kind of a privacy for the parking lot so that at least,
So basically, the
neighbors.
parking lot is shielded by some trees they did put up, but the building itself is not shielded. So anybody from the building, they could look inside to our property, and the pool is right there. You know, kids are out there, and there's zero privacy from that building. It's 850 Vets Highway, that building.
no, it's 7.
750, I'm sorry, 750.
thank you.
So that's our biggest concern about the privacy and what it may do with the addition of people coming into the parking lot.
That's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Gonzalez, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'll just give a brief summary of the application. So it's 2 parcels totaling about 7.5 acres, Zone Business 2, 3 separate buildings, construction in 1982, 1987. All uses within these structures are mostly professional office, with the exception of 1 unit in the building being a medical office. In 1988, there was a parking relaxation at the planning board from 439 stalls required to 362 provided. In 2016, there was a parking relaxation from 366 required to 362 provided for a change of use for one of the units from professional office to medical office, which was the physical therapy unit. The parking counts on the prior action in 2016 were incorrectly calculated and only based off the prior 1988 relaxation as a starting point. The current procedure for parking relaxations is to reassess the entire property as a whole, not from the last relaxation. So it provides a more accurate representation of how deficient the property is as a whole. On paper, that renders a much higher parking relaxation, even if the additional stall requirement from a minor change of use is only a few stalls. So the application before the board tonight factors every unit of each building into account and the 2 properties' overall requirement based on that new change of use in just 1 unit within 1 building. So it's a very minor change within 1 building, but we have to reflect the whole 2 properties. The new numbers are 625 stalls required, where 376 are provided. It is for a change of use for about a 3,200 square foot unit to a behavioral analyst therapies office. Per the applicant's team, the request will be mitigated by the fact that only 60% of the total parking stalls on site are utilized during regular business hours, and that the amount of stalls provided on site are more than adequate to service the entire office park. The prior 2016 had a similar parking occupancy, and no issues have been observed since then. Based on the above, staff recommends the board grant the application subject to the conditions. And I would make a comment that we can look into the comments from the resident. I'll get their information, and we'll take a look at the planting or buffer in that area and see if we can work that into the conditions if there's something that needs to be done.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Yeah, we were looking at the pictures online. It's hard to make out. I'm not sure if the residents have any photos with them of the back. Yeah, if you see them. While we look at those, I'm going to ask, Mr. Frugieri had a question, I believe you want to ask.
I just,
Give it to Tana.
yeah.
Thank you. And if you can just grab the card from over there, and if you could email or send those photos in, it'd be helpful for the record. Thank you. Mr. Frugieri.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that all of the units in this office park are not changing to medical office. It's just the 1 unit totaling 3,221 square feet.
Can the applicant speak on that?
Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. It's only the 1 unit changing
Only
from
the one
office
unit.
to
Okay.
medical office.
Because the speakers seem to understand that that the complex was changing to medical office from professional, and it's only the one unit.
Correct, it's just the one unit.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the board? Anything further from the applicant?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a motion? Mr. Frugieri.
Make a motion to close this public hearing and grant this application, subject to the attached conditions by planning, and to see if planning can work out something with the applicant to enhance some of the buffer area.
It's a motion by Mr. Frugieri to close the public hearing and grant the application subject to the covenants and restrictions, as well as planning department working out something with the applicant. Before I ask for a second, is the applicant amenable to looking at that situation behind the building in that one house where some of the greenery may have gone dead?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion, Mr. Wilson? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, the application is granted. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Item 2 on the agenda, site plan modification, public hearing, Marcus Castro, SP 2022-052, north side of Drayton Avenue, 163 feet east of Fifth Avenue Bayshore, 15 Drayton Avenue. Applicant requests a buffer relaxation in connection with an existing church.
Good evening. My name is Rudolph Shitara, R. Shitara Consulting Engineers, PC, 6500 Jericho Turnpike, Syosset, New York, 11791. We're the applicant for, I think it's 15 Drayton. Okay, we are requesting a relief from the buffer area. This is a church that was built, and it was next to it, which became the same property. The two properties were joined, but there's a house in there, a single-family home, and a garage, which were on the original property, the property that was added. Okay, the problem that we have here is that we are looking for a relief from the buffer area just around the where the garage is and the driveway. So we're asking for the relief. The neighbor next door had sent a letter.
Go ahead.
Okay, neighbor next door sent a letter saying that he will actually add that buffer on his side. So,
Tan, do you have that letter from the neighbor?
I think he's referring to the letter that they obtained from the next door neighbor, basically stating that they had no objection to the buffer relaxation. They did not want plantings.
They did not want the plantings, correct.
okay, so,
Okay,
you know, we do have the buffer throughout the property except for that area.
right. Okay, why don't I go to a staff report, and then we'll come back if we have any questions for you. How's that?
Okay.
Okay, I have nobody who filled out a card who wishes to be heard. Anybody wish to be heard on this application? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to turn to Mr. Gonzalez for a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an industrial one zone, almost 1.5 acre property, currently improved with a church, a single family dwelling, and a detached garage. The subject lot is the consolidation of tax lots 68 and 69. Lot 68 was vacant, and lot 69 was improved with the single family dwelling and detached garage built in 1947 and 51 respectively. A site plan application, which is under SP 2011-039, was approved, which required the lot consolidation and removal of that detached garage and driveway which serviced that structure for the installation of the required 25-foot buffer along the easterly property line. The proposal before the board tonight is to maintain that detached garage and driveway, which renders the installation of the buffer in that particular part of the property impossible. Per the applicant, the dwelling will remain a single-family dwelling, and they have agreed to condition it as such, not allowing any church-related use. As the use of the single-family dwelling has been there since 1947, adjacent to another single-family dwelling, the request for the buffer relaxation does have merit. Should the use ever change of that dwelling, which would require approval of this planning board, The conditions have been drafted in such a way that requires the demolition of that garage and driveway, as well as the installation of the remainder of that 25-foot buffer. However, that is only a safeguard and not proposed with this application. A letter of support from the adjacent neighbor to the east, whom is directly affected by the relaxation, has been received, and they have stated they do not want any buffer planted on their side of the fence. After this board action, the applicant must finalize site plan approval and eventually obtain the CO for the church. So based on the above, staff feels the conditions have been drafted to protect the existing conditions and recommend the board grant the application.
I understand the neighbor to the east is here and wants to speak. So please come up, sir, state your name for the record and
You're looking for the neighbor. Neighbor.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gabriel Sarmiento. I'm from SDG Design. I'm Rudy Chatar associate. Just want to clarify, the planning board asked us to ask the neighbor if the neighbor would allow to have the buffer zone on his property. When we approached him and we saw his property, he doesn't have any planting, he doesn't have any trees at all. It's a whole grass. So he would not attend the idea of having the buffer zone on this side, especially if it's going to be only on that section. It's not going to be the entire length of the property. So he has no problems at all to have the garage the way it is. He's been seeing that garage for the last 40, 50 years since living there because they were adjoining residential properties. And he doesn't have any objections to keep the garage the way it is. But I just want to clarify that he didn't agree to have the buffer zone on his property.
correct. That's our understanding of it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're on the
Thank you.
same- But you're not the neighbor. Just want to clarify that for the record.
The neighbor.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Anything further from the applicant?
No.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Brown.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we close the public hearing and grant the application based on Tanner's report.
We have a motion by Mr. Brown to close the public hearing and grant the application. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Cruz. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions? The application is granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3 on the agenda, Town Board Application Public Hearing, Sawthumb Properties LLC, CZ 2024-007, southwest corner of Sunrise Highway Service Road, State Route 27, and Fifth Avenue Access Ramp, County Route 13, Bay Shore 0 Sunrise Highway. Applicant requests a change of zone to Business 3 and a Town Board special permit to expand an existing motor vehicle dealership pursuant to 68-301. A buffer relaxation is requested as part of this application. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the applicant, John Farrell, firm of Son, Ward, Braff, Cascignano. Our offices are at 1300 Veterans Memorial Highway, Suite 100, Hauppauge, New York. The subject property is located essentially on the exit ramp of Sunrise Highway, Service Road to Fifth Avenue. It consists of 3 irregularly shaped parcels with a total lot area of about 10,306 square feet. The property is currently vacant, and it's effectively landlocked because the only street frontage it has for vehicle access is the exit ramp for Fifth Avenue. You know, I've spoken to traffic engineers, and they are, you know, supremely confident that New York State DOT would deny any kind of curb cut access onto the exit ramp. So really what we have is a landlocked parcel. My client owns the adjoining property, one of the adjoining properties, Bright Bay Lincoln and Bright Bay Mazda. He wants to connect those properties to his parcel and use the land for vehicle storage. Property is zoned residential B. We need a change to business 3 to allow the vehicle storage. Obviously, you know, this is adjacent to residential. We're asking for a minor buffer relaxation, and the reason we're asking for that is to comply with the buffer requirements really squeezes the amount of vehicles you can store, and it really doesn't make it worth even doing any work to the property. You go from about 24 cars, which is what we have proposed, down to about 12 to 14 once you put in the full-size buffers. So we will put some substantial landscaping in there. We'll put fencing, whatever the board requires. We are mindful of the site lighting. I don't think we need a great deal of site lighting, just enough to keep eyes on the vehicles. Again, this is going to be dead storage, so you're not going to have cars constantly coming in and out. Once they put the vehicles there, they're going to be moved in and out as inventory is sold and new inventory is brought in. I've spoken to my client about it. They're not going to bring any car carriers onto this lot. They're going to, unload where they currently unload and then drive the vehicles into this storage area. So, again, we'll try and keep the amount of noise and activity in this location down to a minimum to be mindful of the residents. That's really it. The hours of operation for the dealership are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 8 to 6 on Saturday, and 11 to 5 on Sunday. The activity won't occur outside of those hours. So if the board has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. We'll come back for some questions. I do not have any cards. Anybody come in late who wishes to be heard on this application? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to turn to Mr. Colgan for a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As stated by the applicant, this application proposes a parking lot for retail vehicle inventory on a vacant property zone for a single family. Prior to this subject's motor vehicle dealership was the subject of a change of zone for an expansion along Hallows Road back in 2021. The Business 3 district requested is generally preferred on arterial highways, such as Sunrise Highway. The surrounding area consists of the motor vehicle dealership, single-family homes, as well as apartments. The subject site is not really appropriate for a single-family residence due to its proximity to the off-ramp from Sunrise Highway. The conceptual site plan shows that it does not meet overall landscaping or minimum buffer requirements, showing a 15-foot buffer as opposed to the standard 25. As stated, the subject site would be accessed from the dealership property to the west, which according to town approvals was supposed to be limited to customer employee parking and not retail inventory. The sites to the west are also missing front yard landscaping that was required by prior site plans. The board will have to consider the buffer relaxation, any proposed lighting, and overall landscaping compliance. Therefore, the staff recommends that the board reserve decision tonight to address these concerns with the applicant.
Thank you. Can we speak first to the fact that, according to Mr. Colgan's report, that you're not currently in compliance with the property to the west in terms of the landscaping along Sunrise Highway?
Yeah, Mr. Colgan brought that to my attention this afternoon. I have not had an opportunity to speak with my client about it, but understanding from my conversation with Mr. Colgan that the board would likely reserve decision, I'm certainly going to go and have that conversation with him and make sure that we are in full compliance with the approved site plan.
Yeah, because to come before us and ask for other relaxations and to ask us to rezone some property when we're not getting compliance from your client on the current property, I'm not even sure why we put you on the agenda this evening, to be honest with you.
I will not argue or debate you on that topic. I agree. And like I said, I intend to go and speak with my client about that.
Your application has merit. Those properties probably won't be used for something else, but to grant you or suggest a buffer relaxation, talk about lighting and mitigation of sound over there for the neighbors when I don't have compliance from you on the other property sort of rings hollow a bit to me in terms of what we're going to get if we do this on this property.
I completely agree, and I understand the board's concerns.
So, I'll just put some of the concerns I'll have out there in terms of addressing the buffer, making sure the buffer against the residences, if not going to be, it's going to have substantial plantings.
Yes.
Some of the complaints we get at other car dealerships is the fact that when you're looking for an inventory car, when you can't tell out of the 10 cars that are back there, the 24, you hit the alarm button, and all day long you hear, if you're in the neighbor's residences, you hear car alarms going off. So if in fact this were to go forward, first based on the property to the west coming in compliance and then us agreeing on this, there's going to have to be something in terms of sound as well, in terms of car alarms and the rest that would bring them back before this board. Have you spoken or has your client spoken to any of those immediate neighbors in the residences?
A couple of neighbors reached out to me based on the mailing. They did not express any objections. One neighbor expressed that he was supportive of the application, but they just really wanted to know what exactly was going on. And when I explained it to them, they didn't seem concerned.
Thank you. Are there further questions from the board? Is there anything further the applicant would like to add?
No.
Thank you. I would just ask if you can work with Mr. Colgan and get through those issues on the property to the west.
100%.
Thank you. Is there a
Thank you.
motion? Mr. Moriarty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing and reserve decision this evening.
Motion by Mr. Moriarty to close the public hearing and reserve decision. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Cruz. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions were reserved. Thank
Thank you very much. I'll be in touch.
Item 4 on the agenda, Town Board Application Public Hearing, East Coast Imperial Properties LLC, CZ 2024-008, northwest corner of Sunrise Highway, North Service Road, State Route 27, and Hyman Avenue, Bay Shore, 0 Muncie Road. Applicant requests a change of zone from Residence A to Residence CA in order to construct 9 attached single-family dwellings. Good evening, Mr. Brown.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Any presentation you have for us? I know there are members of the community here. We probably have it in the materials.
Yes.
You would just face it that way so they can see what you're talking about as well. Thank you.
You want us to set up the easel on that side? Very well. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Keith Brown of Brown Altman DeLeo, LLP, 538 Broad Hollow Road, Suite 301 West, Melville, New York, 11747. I'm here tonight on behalf of the owner and applicant, East Coast Imperial Properties, LLC. With me tonight, we have several experts to support the application. Mr. Matt Alward, a PE of RM Engineering, the project engineer. Mr. Wayne Muller, PE of RM Engineering, the project's traffic expert. Ms. Caitlin Kame of PW Grosser and Consulting, our planning expert. Mr. Paul Dykes of Dykes Realty Advisors, our real estate appraiser. Mr. Nick Pfluger, AIA of Bowler Pfluger Architect PC, the project architect. Ms. Judy White of CJ2 Communications, our public relations consultant. And Mr. Rob Panario, president and owner of the owner applicant. Just by way of background, the property is comprised of 4 contiguous vacant tax lots, lots 6.17, 9.1, and 121. That are located on the south side of Muncie Road and north of Sunrise Highway Service Road. The property is currently located in the town's Residence A zoning district and abuts residential properties along the northern and eastern property boundaries. North of the property is the town-owned Anthony Casamento Park and Pool. Directly south of the property is Sunrise Highway North Service Road. East of the property on the north side is a single-family home. East of the property on the south side is a home for people with developmental disabilities. West of the property is a state recharge basin for Sunrise Highway and Robert Moses Causeway drainage. For the board's reference, an aerial map exhibit has been included in the exhibit package previously submitted to the Planning Department as Exhibit 1. As shown on the site plan prepared by R&M Engineering and submitted as Exhibit 2 in the package provided, we're seeking to develop 9 condominium units on the currently vacant land. There'll be 4 3-bedroom units and 5 2-bedroom units. Each of the units will be owner-occupied. In addition, we are proposing to add 2 landscape areas with an outdoor area including benches, a gazebo, and a barbecue patio. The site plan also calls for fire access turnaround and a mountable curb for site circulation of emergency vehicles, God forbid they are needed, and a sidewalk that connects Muncie Road and other site improvements that will be discussed in further detail by Matt Alward, our project engineer. It's important to note that the project area is situated towards the edge of an established, mature residential neighborhood and will be connected with existing infrastructure such as water, sewer, transportation, as well as recreational facilities. We submit that the proposed development will be a complement to the surrounding residential neighborhood by adding large landscape buffers with existing trees and supplemental evergreen plantings. Submitted as Exhibit 3 are the colored site plan and colored building elevations. As you will see from the renderings, one of which is before you right here, prepared by Bowler Pfluger Architect, the proposed design is very well thought out and detailed. It incorporates architectural elements that are compatible with the surrounding residential homes in the area. I would say they're absolutely beautiful. The overall design also incorporates the site design standards of the town's subdivision and land development regulations. Our team has spent a considerable amount of time designing the site plan carefully in a manner that addresses the demand for new homes on Long Island while also conforming to the established character of the area. According to a Newsday article dated April 12th of this year, quote, Long Island needs more housing, but lengthy regulatory reviews, fierce opposition from residents, and higher costs are driving local developers to pursue projects elsewhere, end quote. Our office, along with R&M Engineering, has had several in-person meetings with the Town Planning Department to come up with a design that captures the quaintness and intimacy of a, quote, cottage court development, similar to several other multifamily projects sprinkled throughout the town. As you can see, the proposed site layout situates the townhouse buildings, parking, driveway, and refuse area away from the adjacent residential properties to the maximum extent practicable. Given the property's unique size, configuration, and location, R&M Engineering prepared a report analyzing the potential parking and traffic impacts associated with the application. A copy of that traffic report has been submitted as Exhibit 4. As a result of the site configuration, size, and proximity to Sunrise Highway, the project will require 5 variances from the town's zoning board of appeals, in addition to the change of zone from the town board from A residence district to the CA residential zoning district. Although a variance for the total lot area is required, it should be noted that the applicant previously sought to purchase the adjacent lot to the east as part of the proposed development. Unfortunately, the adjacent owner informed us that they were not interested in selling their property after recently obtaining approvals for additions to the lot. With the addition of that lot, they would have met the lot area requirement under the town code. The second variance, the lot width, is yet another unique aspect of the property's site configuration. Given that the lot width is limited to 54 feet, the townhouse-style condominium development will be largely blocked from view along Muncie Road, which is a benefit. Despite the variance required, we submit that this benefit to the surrounding community keeps the development tucked quietly behind the landscape buffers. While the third variance, a side yard setback, is required, it is noted that the units closest to the abutting residential properties will be located behind a 25-foot vegetated landscape buffer, which will mitigate any impact to the residential neighbor. In addition, we've met with that neighbor and they have no objections to the project. The fourth variance, a variance will be required to permit the arterial highway setback of 86.6 feet, where a minimum of 100 feet is required, or a 13.4-foot variance. Looking at the site plan, you can see that the arterial setback is only slightly encroached by the upper corner of Unit 1. That little corner piece actually just juts out a little bit, which is approximately 220 square foot in size. In other words, if you remove that 220 foot from the corner, that building becomes variance-free. Looking at the site, in addition, similar variance relief was granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals by application number 190 of last year, which permitted an arterial highway setback of 29 feet where a minimum of 50 feet was required. Last, given the location of the driveway along the western property boundary, a variance is required to permit a driveway setback of 5 feet where 8 feet is required. We submit that this aspect of the project is one of the design recommendations from the Town Planning Department, and given that the abutting parcel to the west is a state recharge basin, the proximity of the driveway to the western property line will not adversely affect that adjacent lot to the west. As the board may recall, this property was the subject of another change of zone application in January of 2019. Based on a review of the January 10th, 2019 hearing transcript, the project, which sought to develop the property with 16 for-rent apartment units, received a substantial amount of public opposition. That applicant, not us, decided to withdraw the application, and sometime after, the property was ultimately sold to our client, the current applicant. For this reason, Judy White, our public relations consultant, performed door-to-door community outreach to the residents along Muncie Road, Hyman Avenue, and Story Boulevard. In the months prior to filing the instant application, Ms. White spoke with many of the neighbors, many of whom led the opposition against the prior application, to explain how our project differs from what was previously proposed by the prior owner. We're happy to report, and we express this to all the neighbors, that the proposed development, we clarified that these units will be for sale rather than for rent. The applicant has personally spoken with neighbors such as Mrs. Yurkat, who resides in the home directly north of the property. Given her proximity to the development, it can be said that she will be the most impacted by the project, and yet she too has expressed her support for the application. On July 16th, our team met with the West Islip Civic Association to discuss the proposed development just last month. Although the meeting went well, we received a copy of the letter submitted by the Civic Association to the Planning Board. While the letter states that the association is neutral, the letter continues on to raise several comments regarding the project, which I'd like to address right now. Although the letter fails to provide any data or factual basis for our experts to dispute, we want to address their concerns. With respect to affordability, we note that under the town code, only one unit is required to be affordable, which is based on the median household income. The selling price for that affordable unit will comply with the town's requirement after construction has been completed. Regarding traffic, we note that RM Engineering prepared a report analyzing potential parking and traffic impacts associated with the application, and they concluded that there will be no significant traffic impact on the surrounding roadway network. A copy of the traffic report has been submitted as Exhibit 4. As the report concluded, it's believed that the project, quote, would not create any traffic congestion or hazard in the vicinity of the site. In addition, the report notes that the parking provided is adequate to comply with the parking activity associated with the proposed development. As will be discussed in further detail by our planning expert, P.W. Grosser, the project will not have a negative impact on either the environment or the local school district. Submitted as Exhibit 5 is the planning report prepared by P.W. Grosser Consulting. The report evaluates the environmental setting of the property as well as the potential associated impacts of the proposed development on the environment, zoning, and character of the surrounding area. According to P.W. Grosser's report, the project is expected at best to generate no more than 2 public school-age children. In further support of the application, we've submitted to the board an appraisal prepared by Dykes Realty Advisors. A copy has been submitted as Exhibit 6. According to the report, the proposed change of zone to Residence CA will not adversely impact the property values in the surrounding area and, in fact, enhance the surrounding area. Further, it's noted that the various site improvements depicted on the project plans will significantly enhance the overall aesthetic value of the property. In order to develop the property as proposed, we've submitted the instant application to the town board for a change of zone. In support of our request, we reiterate that the site has undergone numerous revisions to incorporate and accommodate feedback received from the town planning staff. The proposed project also satisfies the well-documented need for more homes on Long Island. The project is also consistent with smart growth principles of the Suffolk County Planning Commission publication, Smart Communities Through Smart Growth, from March of 2000, which was prepared and to encourage mixed-use developments of this type and concentration of resources within developed areas. So at this time, I'd like to call Matt Alward from RM Engineering to walk through the site plan and layout for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Matthew Elwood with R&M Engineering. Offices are at 50 Elm Street in Huntington, New York. Last name is Aylward. Not much to add to Mr. Brown's description of the property, aside the fact that the property only has access on Muncie Muncie Road. It's along the west side of the property, adjacent to the recharge basin. The road will drive in a north and south orientation to where the residents of the 9 units will park then along the south side of the property. We're proposing a 25-foot buffer on the north side, 25-foot buffer on the east side, adjacent to those existing residences, and a 33-foot buffer along Sunrise Highway, along with a 10 to 12-foot screen wall at that 33-foot mark along Sunrise Highway. There's 9 units. We have 18 parking stalls, 2 parking stalls per unit. The refuse enclosure is in the southwest corner of the property, adjacent to the recharge basin, as well as the fire apparatus access turnaround. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Just questions when you come back up after the public hearing. I want to speak to you about the parking numbers.
Sure.
Which I think what you're saying is required might be different than what the town says is required, so we just want to go through that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next, we have Ms. Caitlin Kim, and she prepared a very detailed environmental and planning report, which is in your package. So she's going to summarize that now. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and honorable members of the board. For the record, my name is Caitlin Keim. I'm a certified planner through the American Institute of Certified Planners, and I am a senior environmental planner for PW Grosser with offices at 630 Johnson Avenue in Bohemia, New York. This firm prepared and submitted a planning analysis report. We were also provided a copy of the letter from the West Civic Association. I like to address certain comments of the letter first, and I'll supplement with additional information from the planning report. So the letter indicates the townhouse units would not be considered affordable housing. It's noted that the proposed development would include 8 market rate units and 1 would be offered as affordable housing in accordance with the town code. The units would be priced in accordance with the requirements of the town of Islip. The fiscal year 2024 median family income for the Nassau-Suffolk metropolitan area, as established by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, is $156,200. As the affordable unit would be the 2-bedroom unit, it cannot exceed 2.5 times the median family income, or $390,500. It should be noted that the median family income is expected to rise by the time the development is constructed, and the sales price would be priced accordingly. Regarding the comment that any neighboring property that becomes available for sale could be a target for multiple dwellings and not single-family homes, the applicant is not proposing to expand the residential development, and any application for development would be subject to the review and approval of the town. The final comment in the letter indicates that the overconcentration of building will impact the environment, the school district, and would increase traffic without expanding the road infrastructure. The planning report evaluated the environmental impacts and school district impacts of the proposed development. With regard to the environmental setting, the on-site soils do not present any significant engineering concerns, as the site is relatively flat and the depth to groundwater is suitable for drainage structures. With adequate separation distance, the grading program would generally maintain the current site elevation. The site is not located within a special groundwater protection area or any special flood hazard area. There are no state-regulated streams or freshwater wetlands located on or adjacent to the site, nor does the site contain a significant natural community or species of plant or animal that is listed by the federal government or New York State as an endangered, threatened, rare, or as a species of special concern. The site is not located within an archaeologically sensitive area, and there are no state and or national register properties listed or eligible for listing on or adjacent to the site. Prior to the commencement of construction, erosion and sedimentation control measures would be undertaken, and fugitive dust would be controlled with watering of soils. Stormwater runoff associated with a 5-inch storm would be accommodated and recharged on site, and the drainage system would be designed in accordance with the town's subdivision and land development regulations. The development would connect to the public water supply and discharge sanitary waste to the municipal sanitary sewer. The existing wooded areas around the perimeter of the site would be retained. Prior to the commencement of site clearing, all existing trees to be retained will be clearly marked with silt fencing and or tagging. Overall, the proposed action would not result in any significant environmental impacts. Regarding school district impacts, it's noteworthy that all published demographic analyses for multifamily development that's being proposed is less than single family and is estimated to generate no more than 2 public school-age children, which represents 0.05% of the 2022-23 enrollment per West Islip Union Free School District. In comparison, if the site was developed with single-family homes in accordance with the Residence A zoning district, it could be upwards of 5 public school-age children. The planning report addressed the benefits and need for the proposed development. With regard to benefits, the development would be compatible with the existing surrounding land uses and would replace a vacant and underutilized parcel with an aesthetically pleasing residential community in an established, mature residential area with existing infrastructures and facilities. The development incorporates the site design standards of the subdivision and land development regulations of the town, including the preservation of existing wooded areas within large landscape buffers, the installation of supplemental evergreen plantings, providing for a safe and efficient site circulation, including a well-developed system of internal sidewalks to allow for safe circulation to, from, and throughout the site, as well as adequate off-street parking. The proposed action would also respond to documented housing needs other than single-family homes and would include an affordable component. The project would also be consistent with the smart growth principles published by the Suffolk County Planning Commission. Development is expected to utilize local businesses for landscaping and general property maintenance, as well as support local services and businesses. The planning report also looked at the impacts on land use, zoning, neighborhood character, and community facilities and services. Regarding land use, the proposed site design would minimize potential impacts to the adjacent residential properties by situating the townhouse buildings, parking, driveway, and refuse area away from those residential properties. The existing wooded areas around the perimeter of the site would be retained, and supplemental evergreen tree screening would also be planted adjacent to the residential uses to enhance the visual buffer. A concrete sound barrier would also be constructed along the southern boundary of the site to attenuate sound levels from Sunrise Highway, North Service Road, and Sunrise Highway. It's noted that the permitted yield within the Residence CA zoning district is 9 units per acre, which would equate to 12 units for the 1.40 acre site. However, due to the site area, lot configuration, proposed unit size, and recreational amenities, as well as design and parking requirements, the proposed action includes only 9 units, which would equal a density of 6.4 units per acre. As the project attorney indicated, the project requires several variances, and an analysis of the specific criteria for the granting of the variance was performed in the planning report, indicating they would not result in a detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community. Regarding neighborhood character, the design intent of the development is to complement the surrounding residential neighborhood with large landscape buffers, incorporating architectural elements compatible with the surrounding residential structures and situating the townhouses and other site elements away from the adjacent residential properties. Visually, the frontage of the site along Muncie Road is limited to 50 feet, such that the development would be largely blocked from views along Muncie Road. Overall, no significant adverse impacts to land use, zoning, and neighborhood character are expected. Regarding community facilities and services, the projected population of 22 people, which is conservative in that it doesn't account for the potential of existing town residents to reside at the development, is not expected to result in an undue demand for police, fire, and EMS services. It's noted that the additional resident population could add to the pool of potential volunteer firefighters and EMS personnel. With regard to public recreational resources, the proposed design provides the residents with outdoor amenity space. The proposed patios behind the townhouses could also serve as informal play areas. It's also expected that the residents of the community would also utilize the area parks, beaches, and open spaces similar to other residents within the neighborhood. Overall, no significant adverse impacts to community facilities and services are expected. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kim.
Ms. Kim, I'm just going to ask when you come back up afterwards if you want to start researching it, just how you reached your numbers in terms of the child-aged, school-aged children numbers. Not now, when you come back up.
When we come back up?
First.
Sure.
Just giving you time to prepare for that.
So just to give you a little preview, we have Paul Dykes, the real estate appraiser. I don't think it's really necessary to go through that unless the board members would like to hear his testimony. He could just answer questions, as well as Mr. Muller from a traffic point of view. I would just like to have Mr. Pfluger just walk you through the elevations because they're quite handsome and each building has its own unique features. So if we do that really quickly, and then we'll rest our presentation.
Just on the traffic, they don't have to come up now, but again, after we go through the public hearing and the rest, I'm going to have questions in terms of how you come up with the peak traffic count.
Sure.
Seemed a bit low to me.
Okay.
Not now, when you, afterwards, we want to do your...
So next we'd like to call Nick Pfluger.
Good evening. My name is Nicholas Pfluger of Bolo Pfluger Architects with offices at 85 East Main Street, Bayshore, New York, and I am the project architect. The site is comprised of 3 buildings, and each building is 2 stories. The materials that we're using on the building is going to be a vinyl Dutch lap siding with a natural stone base.
Just before you go forward, do you have the elevations to put on the board or no?
Yeah, I have several perspective renderings and also the colored elevations. But
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. So there'll also be a natural stone base around each building, giving a nice grounded feel to the buildings. They'll have asphalt architectural roof shingles. Each building will vary in color using soft, non-exaggerated colors. The buildings will also feature a covered front porch over each entry to each unit and a fenced-in backyard, in which the mechanical units will be located in the fenced-in backyard, so they'll be shielded from view. The units are 2 stories each, where there is an interior stair connecting the stories. The basic living spaces are on the first floor, bedrooms are on the second floor. The buildings exhibit a residential look and feel, which we believe is consistent with other developments like this in the town of Islip and fits the immediate neighborhood as well. The roof lines have several reverse gables to give a residential aesthetic to the buildings. And they also are trimmed out with what we call a barge end in that gable with some board and batten siding and some brackets underneath that barge end, which is the white part within the peak. The space in between the buildings offer a sense of community with an inviting landscape, including a gazebo. That's about it. If the board has any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you.
Explain to them which buildings, which.
So,
Sorry, got to turn around.
Oh, let's do it this way. So we have what we're calling Building 1 here, which has 4 units. We have Building 2 here, which has two units, and Building 3, which has 3 units. You can see the aesthetic, excuse me, is similar with each building, but they vary slightly in size and configuration. Again, each entry has a covered porch, giving a very cozy residential feel to each building. And again, we're using colors that are earth tones or non-exaggerated colors, colors that you would see in a typical residential neighborhood.
Great. Thank you. And it's just one comment I just want to address that came up during our civic meeting. It was written into the letter that we received from the Civic Association. I just wanted to read it to the board because I think I know what they meant by it, and I just wanted to address it. They say, we also observe any property that becomes available, and I'm sorry, I'm reading it off a phone, that becomes available for sale becomes a target for multiple dwellings and not single-family homes. And during our meeting that we had with them, they expressed a concern about other properties to the east, because there's nothing to the west, being bought by our applicant, my client, and spreading the complex, I guess, to the east. And I've already explained the one property was not available. They just went and got a building permit, and they're investing a lot of money into the property just to the east. And there's no desire by the applicant to expand this complex. And I just want to also mention, and Caitlin said it, but I just want to reiterate, this is not an over-intensification of this property. By code, if this was a square lot, we could do 12 units, right? But instead, because of the site configuration, we're only doing 9. So that's a major concession that we've made as a result of it. And it only results in just that little tail, that 220 square feet that I mentioned during my overview. So that concludes our presentation. We'll answer any questions after the public has an opportunity to opine. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
Kevin Appel?
Actually, I'm doing really good. I live at 1225 Hyman Avenue, and I got to tell you, if they were building a deli, this would be the biggest bunch of bologna sandwiches you've ever seen. We were never notified by anybody, okay? And there's already an entrance to the house that's on the property now, on Hyman Avenue. So they're going to have 2. We shot this whole thing down many years ago, and you had a lot more neighbors at that time. But ever since your taxes go up, everybody has to work more jobs. That's a whole nother issue. So to change the zoning, I don't get this part. It's residential right now, and you want to make it commercial. That's the beginning of the end, because you're going to have skyscrapers sooner or later. And this is a family block, Hyman Avenue. Everybody knows each other. And if something like this goes through, where is it really going to end? And the other thing is, since we weren't notified, there's more than 2 neighbors to the east. Okay? The guy that's taking care of his house now, which he's doing a great job, and then the old man on the corner. He said there was only 1. So there's too many lies already in this whole story. This is crazy. You guys got to really look at this. We got children on the block. And then, speaking of children, what if one of them gets killed? We already have enough problems with Casamento Park because the gates don't get locked up at night. And if they have an overflow at this place, the gates are open. Mom and dad have a car. The kids are going to have a car. Where are they going to park? It's only 18 spots. So they're going to park in the park that never gets locked. Where's it going to end? We got race cars coming down Hyman Avenue. Everybody wants to get to the pool in the summer. It's insane. Nothing gets done. And another thing is we were never notified what you guys are doing with Casamento Park. It's just, there's too much baloney. And we're all fed up with it. So you guys take a good look at this with your heart. And if you have grandchildren like I do, think about them running down the street. What's going to happen next? You guys going to sleep at night knowing that somebody got killed on Hyman Avenue because this thing goes up? Think about all this stuff. It's unfair. So thank you. Hope I didn't upset you about the bologna sandwich.
Thank you.
Maria Soprano?
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Maria Sensoprano, and since 1991, I live at 1221 Hyman Avenue, around the corner from the property in question. I'm against this change in zoning because, to me, this is a blatant case of spot zoning. In 1960, Church versus Islip, spot zoning was allowed only because at the time, Islip was in an area of rapidly increasing population. To quote one of their people, they said that this is an established, mature residential area. This is not a new area. There is no new population going on here. This is a Zone A community. I go further to call this zoning change an example of illegal spot zoning. Spot zoning is used to favor a particular individual at the expense of the neighboring property owners. This spot zoning should be invalid and illegal on the grounds that it's arbitrary, it's capricious, and unreasonable treatment of a parcel of land that is currently zoned Zone A. Why not build single residential houses on it instead that would reflect the essence of our existing community? According to the Court of Appeals in Huff versus the Board of Zoning Appeals in 1957, if it is an arbitrary and unreasonable devotion of a small area to a use inconsistent with the uses to which the rest of the district is restricted and made for the sole benefit of the private interests of the owners, it's invalid. It undermines the pre-existing rights and uses of adjacent property owners. And as was mentioned, none of us were informed of this. The proposed use of this parcel is inconsistent with the uses permitted in the largest surrounding district. And therefore, again, to me, it is nothing more than spot zoning and should be declared illegal, invalid, and not allowed. In Rogers versus the Village of Tarrytown, New York, 1951, it stated that spot zoning is the process of singling out a small parcel of land for a use classification totally different from that of the surrounding areas for the benefit of the owner of such property and to the detriment of the owners. Again, one of their people already stated there are other developments in the town of Islip like this, not ours. We don't want this here. A change in zoning will change the whole character of our local area. More people, more traffic, safety issues, noise, and yes, a reduction of property values. You can't tell me that isn't going to do it. 5 variances are proposed on this site. So I need not tell you that the minimum requirements are not met for area and the setbacks are not met. The owner is attempting to change our low-density residential Zone A into a higher-density Zone CA. This is inconsistent with the surrounding use. Every other lot on the residential street and surrounding streets is zoned A. Changing this plot to CA is a stereotyping version of spot zoning, again, illegal, invalid, and should not be allowed. The applicants are asking to receive a favorable zoning classification, either because they asked or because they're being favored. Instead, perhaps the applicants will consider something more desirable, such as building residential houses that meet Zone A requirements on this plot. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Ellen Yancey.
My name is Ellen Yawney. I've been a resident of Hyman Avenue for almost 30 years now. We've been through this quite a few times in this area. She said it best. We are a one-family residential neighborhood. There's no need to put this in. Recently, Town of Islip has decided to clear-cut Casamento Park for all new soccer fields, which again adds to the traffic on Hyman Avenue and Muncie. Now you're going to put in a driveway on Muncie Avenue, almost directly opposite the entrance to this park. So we'll have people coming and going into these new soccer fields, and now multiple residents coming to and from this new area. It's not going to work. They say 22 people in this area. There are 22 bedrooms. Do you really think one person per bedroom? People's going to buy a 3-bedroom home, and there's going to be 2 people, and only 2 children in the school district? I have no children in the school district. I pay over $10,000 in school taxes. I'm fine with that. But the single residence is where we are, where we want our community to go, and where we want our children to stay. This is not for us, and your consideration is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer Bryce.
My last name is Byrne, but I live at 1210 Hyman Avenue, and I've been a resident here for about 16 years. I pay $20,000 in taxes, and I have a single resident home. You cannot tell me that's not going to affect the value of my house. I've improved my house to make my neighborhood a better place, and I have seen all of my neighbors join in that crusade, adding property value, adding second floors, having their homes be valued because we want to keep it a family community. This, you have no guarantee that they're not going to. I could buy one of these houses right now, and I could rent it out myself if I wanted to destroy my neighborhood. That's what's going to happen. People are going to buy this affordable housing. They're going to get a bus down to the border and drive the people back and put them in. That's what's going to happen. And you all see it on the news. And we don't need this. You can go to Bayshore right now up the road where there's 1 million commercial buildings with tons of brand new housing, and that doesn't look better. It doesn't look better. It's gorgeous, but it was zoned for that. This is not zoned for it. And they said it themselves. We don't have the right square footage for this. We lost the property on the corner, which we also have to contend with the vans, the new machinery that's going to come in and out for those adult children, which I greatly appreciate and value them as individuals. But that's going to be a new experience we don't even have yet. That's number one. Number two, you put that driveway there. We have a movie night. We get over 100 cars on our block for movie night, and that's with a parking lot already established. You're asking us to accept a minimum of 54 cars. 9 times 6 bedroom spots. Because I guarantee you they're not going to all just be children. They're going to be children. My neighbors in the area, I'm not going to mention, have multiple families already in their home. They're all relatives. I love them dearly. But when they have a party, it's tons of people on the block. Angie Carpenter is already aware of the fact that we have had multiple situations on our block of renters renting out their home for parties that they charge for. Angie Carpenter knows it's happened twice over the summer where we had over 200 cars in the park and on our block for a single family home renter. What are we asking? What are we inviting? It's just not fair. Put 2 homes. Make it beautiful. I'm not saying we don't want new people living in our neighborhood. We welcome that. But please think about what we're trying to do in our community and think about, I mean, they know. They wouldn't be here if they knew they could just keep it residential and do what they want. They have to change the zone, and then that changes everything, when we won't have a say at that point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lori Klein?
Hi, my name is Lori Klein, and forgive me, I'm a little nervous and I'm a little upset about everything that I've heard here tonight. I am a 32-year resident, second generation, on my house, on my block. I learned to drive on that block. Now you can't even get off the block. I live between Story and Bayshore Road and this proposed on Muncie. There is also an underpass. The kids used to ride their bikes, underpass on here. I don't know where the parking lot's going to be for here, but there's problems. We are surrounded in a little circle of people. It's not only this, we have the soccer fields now going into Casamento, which we were never made aware of. We have a house on the end of on 1202, which is supposedly zoned for adults with disabilities and stuff. Where's the parking going to be for that if that is not a residential house? So now you're taking all of Sunrise and the fact of Sunrise Highway being a death trap with the overload under there, you're going to block off that whole thing. If my house needs a fire department or a police officer, good luck getting on the block with this. There's a bus stop right on that corner also from the park. And I can tell you at any point in time, Casamento is never locked. You can go down there at 1 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock, and there are campers parked there. There are homeless people in their cars parked there. We've had this. We've rent them out. Now my backyard is one big mess. You took out all the vegetation, everything behind there. Now we have a soccer field. Hyman Avenue is a cutoff from Story all the way down to come around. Where are the people who are visiting? You have family visiting you. Where are they parking in 18 spots? Where is that going to happen? I speak for a lot of the moms and dads that couldn't make it tonight because they have first day of school and they all have, sports and stuff. I don't have kids in the in school now, but I have a lot of neighbors that I know all the children. We are a family. One person gets upset, we all get upset. We've been through this. We were through this in 2019 when you wanted to make more and you wanted to change 1202 zoning also. And it was shot down that night. We had a village, and if it takes a village to get a no for this, well, I guess then we're going to rally the troops because this doesn't belong. If you have to buy someone's property, you're looking just to put 10 pounds into a 5-pound bag. It's a wooded area. It doesn't cause anybody else harm. And you know what? It's the buffer. Where are the buffers in the back with Casamento now? Where are the buffers going to be when the soccer goes on? And I played soccer all my life. I listened to the beeps in Casamento. And when they go by, the cars that park there, it's just not. And now you want to do the pullover. You want to add this right across from it. If you live there, would you want this? You can have all the ingredients. You can have all the people, all the right people coming up here and saying the right words. But how about talking to the people, which we were never asked about? How about talking to the people in the community to see if we want it? Because if this was in your backyard, or in my case, it is my backyard, would you want it there? I would appreciate if someone would just take the time to review this and to see the safety factors, because like they said, if a child gets killed on this or taken because that field is not, that area is not safe, there is no guarantees of parking and closing there. I would not want it on my head. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That is the last card I have. Did anybody come in late who did not sign up who wishes to be heard on this application? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to turn to Mr. Colgan for a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As stated by the applicant, this application proposes a 9-unit townhouse development on vacant residential land. Prior to this, the property was the subject of a change of zone to Residency A for 16 apartments back in 2019. That application was withdrawn at the public hearing due to the concerns raised by the public at that time. The Residency A district is generally preferred in areas within a convenient distance to a downtown, retail services, and public transportation. The Residency A code also requires the site be of sufficient size to accommodate buffers, landscaping, parking, as well as recreational offerings. The site is not walkable to services or mass transit. There has been a long-standing policy along Sunrise to promote diversified housing when an appropriate site design can be achieved. The surrounding area here consists of primarily single-family homes with Anthony Casamento Park to the north. The conceptual site plan is short on parking by approximately 4 stalls by staff's estimates and provides a few amenities for the residents, proposed residents, including outdoor cooking facilities, a gazebo, and a communal landscaped area. A sound attenuation wall is also proposed along the southern parking area. Variances will be needed from the Zoning Board of Appeals, including relief from minimum lot area and setbacks from Sunrise Highway and the side yard. The board could consider requiring the removal of a townhome or combining units 1 and 2 into a duplex in order to comply with the setback requirement from Sunrise Highway. A traffic study was submitted by the applicant, and the study concluded that the increase in traffic would be de minimis. The building elevations show traditional residential design and materials. This is a possible opportunity to diversify the town's housing stock with an alternative sort of lifestyle. However, the staff recommends that the board reserve decision tonight to address the concerns we've heard this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, just first on housekeeping wise, have you submitted cards for the required mailings?
Yes, I was going to address the proper notice. All notice mailings and posting were performed in accordance with the town code. As far as the mailings, my office personally did it. My staff, my associate, Hansley Mohan, is here, who oversaw it. If the board has any questions of him. In addition, we use Joseph Barone to do all of our posting. Joe has been doing our postings for about 20 years now, and we submitted all affidavits with regard to the notices that were requisite as part of the hearing.
Thank you. We'll ask just the staff to review that to make sure.
Yep.
I don't know if you want to answer anything first, and I certainly have questions that
I just wanted to just address a couple of the issues that were raised, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Muller to come up, and then Ms. Kame to address both the traffic issues and the planning issues that were raised. You know, just a legal note, because one of the members of the public brought up a lot of case law. For those board members that are not aware, the state of New York, by legislative authority, changed completely the definition of a comprehensive plan in 1993. What they said in 1993 was that anything the town does, any decisions it makes, becomes part of the town comprehensive plan. In other words, this idea of spot zoning really went out the window because the towns need to be malleable and the plan has to be flexible because who knows how many decades it'll be in between the time that they update their comprehensive plan. So the application, as I spoke about, Ms. Kame has it in her report, is really quite modest when you look at overall as it sits. I think it sits very nicely. A lot of work went into the site configuration between R&M and planning department staff. In the staff report, I wrote it down actually before I heard it because I haven't seen the staff report, but we do need to diversify our housing stock here on Long Island. As everyone knows, we read in Newsday, you know, just about once every week, if not, you know, beyond that, we need housing for young people and empty nesters because that then frees up single-family homes for young families to move into back when all of us were young and we were looking for, you know, a home to call our own. And it's good for the school district as well because those new families moving into single-family homes help replenish the depleting number of school children and demographics in our areas. As far as the buffers are concerned, you can see from the site plan, there's also a black and white site plan which shows the only thing that doesn't meet the buffers and it's the arterial setback is just that one little corner, which I would say is de minimis, 200 square feet. And finally, from a planning perspective, as Ms. Kame and P.W. Grosser, you know, very eloquently put in their report, it meets all the town code requirements and the subdivision and land use regulations. So with that, I'd ask Mr. Muller to come up and address the board's question.
Good evening. For the record, Wayne Muller, R&M Engineering, offices at 50 Elm Street, Huntington, New York. As Mr. Colgan indicated, we prepared a traffic engineering assessment as part of the proposed development dated August 5, 2024, which was previously submitted to the town. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have regarding the contents therein, or
I have a few, I mean, just going through your numbers, what, your estimation for peak travel in the morning, were the numbers 3 or 4? I forgot, I'm trying to remember what they exactly were.
using the statistics presented in the Institute of Transportation Engineers Traffic Generation Manual, the 11th edition, which is the latest edition, for the 9 single-family attached dwelling units, we would anticipate in the morning a total of 4 trips. That would be 1 entering and 3 exiting for the 9 units. In the afternoon, it would be 5, 3 entering, 2 exiting.
Is this a 55 and over community? I'm just wondering who goes to work and what times if they are not going to get peak hours.
Well, I mean, just from my own perspective, not everybody leaves during the peak hour. People spread their activity over multiple hours. Some people may leave at 6 o'clock in the morning, some may leave at 7, some may leave at 8. It depends on their schedules.
Yeah, I would just suggest, I mean, 2 and 3 bedrooms nowadays, a lot of families on Long Island, I mean, dynamics have changed in terms of both people working in the household. So I just, for me, the numbers didn't add up. I understand where you got them from, but you're putting in
From my own
2 or 3
personal
bedroom units.
perspective, we have 4 people living in the house. The peak hour, during the peak hour, which would normally be between 7 and 9 a.m., traditionally, I may be the only person who leaves. Everybody else has a different schedule and leaves at different times.
Right, but
I
multiply
mean,
that
that's
out by
why the
9.
statistics are generated like that.
Right, okay, I mean, that's your answer, certainly. I mean, I guess our traffic people can look at that as well, but that's certainly a concern that I had. The other issue I had is, certainly in the summertime, I was there not long ago when the movie night was there with cars parked all over the place, but in addition to that, when it's peak and people are pulling in and out of that Casamento Park, how do you foresee that working? People making a left out of there, or one's making a left, both making a left, one's making a left, one's making a right. It sort of becomes a non-signaled intersection. I'm not suggesting put a light there or a stop sign there. There's already one not far away on Hyman, but how is that going to work during peak hours?
The way that we've configured the driveway as shown on the site plans prepared by my firm, by Mr. Aylward, is that we've aligned the driveway to the best of our ability opposite the driveway from Casamento Park. And the reason for that is that would eliminate or tend to minimize potential conflict for people doing the various different turning movements in and out of this development and in and out of the park. And as indicated in my report, we prepared a site distance analysis at our driveway and found that the site distance looking both to the east and west out of the driveway far exceeds recommended standards. So as far as the ability for vehicles to see one another traversing either the park, leaving the park driveway or entering, I do not think that would be a significant impediment to the location of the driveway.
Yeah, my concern is because it's directly across from it, people pulling out of both sides at the same time, wanting to go in the same direction, cars waiting to make a left into the development. There's not a lot of room to pass them on the right. You get into where the pedestrians are walking, or people, even worse, walking into the park or walking. So that raises concerns for me.
But traditionally, I mean, in my opinion, it would be better to have the driveways aligned opposite one another rather than offset, because offset intersections traditionally tend to provide, more problems because the cars are offset and the vehicles are looking one way, then there's a car coming out of another area. Traditionally, that's the way that I would see it. Now, in so much as the parking requirement.
Just to answer your point, I'm not suggesting offsetting it would be better. I'm just suggesting I think there's a concern for me having that with the park across from it.
I understand. But again, due to the relatively low level of traffic that we would anticipate this development to generate, we would not anticipate any significant impacts to the operation of the park driveway or this driveway. Now, as it relates to the parking requirements, we've had the opportunity to revisit the code, and we provided on the plans for a 1-family dwelling, even though they're attached, 2 per dwelling unit. Based on my discussions with Mr. Aylward, we took a look roughly at the plan. We could provide more parking on the property by reconfiguring certain things and maybe shifting some of the buildings around. So if the board was concerned that there was a lack of parking, we could move things around a little bit and provide more parking on the property.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly, 2 and 3 bedroom units, 9 of them, if you, on the low end, estimate 2 per unit. Nowadays, with people working, that's all 18 spots. If somebody has a guest or has somebody over, somebody wants to do a barbecue or do something like that, where do you anticipate
Well,
people
again, I'd just like to point to the town zoning ordinance, the table of minimum required parking spaces for a one-family or two-family dwelling. It's 2 per dwelling. So if it's a one-family dwelling, it doesn't really specify how many bedrooms. Could be 1, could be 5. Requires
Right.
2
Reality
spots.
is reality. What's written is written. But if, again, with guests coming, where do you anticipate them parking?
But again,
Just
we
ask me
would-
that question.
I mean,
Yes, are they parking in the same
in the
18 spots?
Yeah, because
In the
again,
same
the peak level of activity for a residential development, whether it be a single-family home, a multi-family apartment, is overnight. When people are home, that's the peak parking activity. Because again, no matter what day of the week, theoretically, on a Saturday, not everybody's home at the same time. So in this instance, where some other developments may provide 2 spots in a driveway, say, and no on-street parking, the facility as shown on the plans prepared by my firm is a parking lot. So if not everybody's home at the same time, which we don't anticipate, then visitors could use some of the spots that are available on site. And as I indicated before, we did take a look at the plan, and if there was a concern from planning staff and the board that the parking is lacking in some form of fashion, that we could take a look at things and revisit it and provide more parking on the property.
Just with your reconfiguration, how many spots additional are you saying you can add?
After a preliminary analysis, we find that we could probably get somewhere around 7 additional spots. Correct. Yeah, we were thinking if we maybe widened the driveway in, provided some parallel parking along the driveway, similar fashion to a residential street, as well as if we shifted the refuse enclosure closer to the recharge basin, we could provide another 2 spots there.
That's it on the parking and the parking and traffic are the only questions I have. Mr. Brown has a question regarding the wall. I'm not sure that.
Yeah, on the cutaway that we have here, show the brick wall, which is, I know it was mentioned in the presentation, it goes along Sunrise Highway?
Correct.
But what is the height of it, and how far around the complex does it go?
It goes only along the Sunrise Highway frontage, and the height, we haven't determined the height yet. We're somewhere in the 10 to 12-foot range.
All right.
Yeah, it's a precast wall. Columns get put in, and then the panels get slid into it. It's decorated and colored.
It's similar to the walls that are currently being designed and installed by the state, where the panels slide in between the beams.
So cement, concrete instead of brick?
And that'll be totally blocked by landscaping? You won't see the wall? From the outside?
Correct. We have a 33-foot buffer along Sunrise Highway, which we're not going to touch. That's going to remain as it is today, undisturbed.
And it's just Sunrise, it's not coming around the sides of the house to the east, the wall?
Correct. On the north and the east side there, that 25-foot vegetation is the buffer is going to stay. We're not going to touch those first 25 feet as well.
Any further questions from the board on traffic or parking? Or any questions? Well, I have questions regarding the number of kids, how we determine school-age kids, which is probably not for you. And then I also have questions just regarding, the walkability in terms of how we normally do things like this, in terms of what's walkable around there.
Hi, yes. So regarding the public school-age children analysis, this firm, we use the multifamily housing on Long Island study published by the Long Island Housing Partnership. And that's based upon data collected from the number of public school-age children generated from existing multifamily developments in both Nassau and Suffolk County. And from that study, the multiplier for both 2-bedroom and 3 bedrooms in Suffolk County is 0.18. So when you take that and apply it to the 9 units, you get 1.62 rounded up to 2 public school-age children. I do also think it's important to note that looking back for the last decade of enrollment in the West Islip Union Free School District, the 2013 to 2014 district enrollment was the peak in the last 10 years. And since then, it has declined by over 1,000 students. So the potential increase of 2 wouldn't be a significant impact.
I mean, I would just say to that, there's a difference between longtime residents who we've heard a lot have been there 20, 30 years, whose kids go on, versus new people buying into a community or moving into a community which may have kids. But my concern becomes, and maybe less for you and more for the traffic people or for Mr. Brown, is that if we're saying there are not going to be kids in those extra bedrooms, who's going to be in those bedrooms? It's going to be people with cars then. And then it gets me back to my traffic trip count as well as the parking calculation. So we can't argue both sides of this and say we're not going to have kids and we're not going to have people in those bedrooms. That's what my question is for the applicant, to really, make a decision. We can use the statistics in one or the other, but you can't use them both to your benefit without giving an answer. And that's just one thing that I think needs to be answered again. If it's not tonight, certainly in writing back to us, because this will remain open the record afterwards. And then walkability, I'm not sure who wants to address that.
As far as walkability, I mean, internally the site does have safe circulation, the sidewalks to traverse the site itself. But
I'm
as far
talking
as
just walkability to like a downtown when you do developments like this. How do we get to that part? Within the site, I'm okay with the walkability. Normally there's a downtown or something when we put developments like this.
they would have to walk along Muncie Road. And
Right. It's just not that
It's
close in terms of, there's not a train station close by, there's not local shops close by, is what I'm just trying to get an answer to.
But there is, Mr. Chairman, further to the east, along Muncie Road, you have Howells Road, Pioneer Drive, and there's retail shops along that.
On the other side of Sunrise Highway.
So it's not that far. It's not that far-fetched that people could walk over there. Kids could ride their bikes to those retail centers like we used to do when we were kids. Well, I didn't grow up in a commercial center, right? But we used to hop on our bikes. We used to go down to Larkfield Road.
No question. I grew up along Muncie Road. My parents still live along Muncie Road. I know the area very well. I used to ride my bike there when it was the Gardner Manor Mall, and there was Stearns there and other things there back in the day, so I know getting there by bikes. I'm just saying, to get the increased density, some of the things that we look at would be what's walkability, what's there for people to walk to, and the distance between those places and where you're proposing the development.
Sure.
And again, I would ask that be explained more so in writing when you submit something after.
No problem. We can follow up with something in writing.
Ms. Cruz?
I wanted to know if there was any sidewalks on these streets, on both sides or any sides? There's no side.
Ladies and gentlemen, she's keeping a record, so we can address that, or I can certainly address it. I know the area very well. I still visit my parents there.
There aren't any, as far as I know, on Muncie today. That doesn't mean, I mean, where I'm from, the county is entering into a plan where they're putting sidewalks up and down both sides of Pulaski Road. So that doesn't mean that, Muncie is which jurisdiction? Town jurisdiction. So it doesn't mean that sidewalks are as part of any future planning that the town may have.
The only sidewalks now are much further west when you on along Muncie.
And my other question is, have you reached out to that neighbor that's right on that corner where the driveway has?
Yes, we have.
And have they supported it? Have they said anything? Is there anything?
That's the neighbor just to the north you're talking about?
Yeah, right behind, right where the driveway starts. That. Yes.
Yes, most definitely. That's the most affected neighbor. So of course we've met with them. They didn't have any objection to the project. And just to reiterate what our project engineer said, we're not disturbing any of the buffers on the north or east. That naturally vegetated area is going to remain, as well as the buffer, along Sunrise Highway. So Any of the construction activity also is going to be within that, because that naturally vegetated area is going to, it's there today, it'll be there, and the area to the east that you see on the site plan will be infilled with additional vegetation as needed in order to create like a natural screen from sunrise.
Okay, and is there any possibility or any thought of not having 9? What's the lowest you can go for units?
9. It becomes economically infeasible to develop the property. That's why the number has been 9. We'd like it to be 12, but we understand that, the site configuration, the parameters of the project don't allow for it. So that's why, we are at 9.
Any further? You good? Anything further from the board? Would the applicant like to add anything further?
No, I just conclude by saying we submit that the proposed development of the property, as well as the required changes of zone, will be an excellent addition to the town for the following reasons. 1, developing a vacant property to build new homes will address Long Island's current housing crisis and diversify the housing stock in the town of Islip for empty nesters as well as young people who are looking for homes and would like to stay here or go to college and come back here. It is not an over-intensification of the site. The architectural design and site amenities will create a community feel that conforms with the residential character of the area. It is not disturbing any of the naturally wooded areas to the south, east, or north. And lastly, the project will also create much-needed construction jobs and additional tax revenue for the town, much more than it's receiving now. As such, we respectfully request the Town Planning Board refer the application to the Town Board, or at least reserve decision tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Mr. Brown, just to my questions I've raised tonight, if we can get something in writing.
Yes.
Addressing each of those points.
Absolutely.
I think all of us here agree in the diversity of housing stock. I mean, that's where Long Island's headed, but certainly there's got to be a tie to where we put it. And that's what I think I'd like to see explained in the letter, is why in the single-family residential area, that's not as walkable as other places where we would normally put housing like this, how you think that works and how you anticipate that work.
Yeah, I just want to mention initially, and it says in Ms. Kame's report, that this is right on the fringe, right? And it's tucked, neatly in between a recharge basin and 2 major highways. So it is an excellent site, I would say, for this type of development. So but we'll expand upon that.
Just address it. It's Residence A right now, and there's only Residence A immediately around it, so we can argue both sides of that. So that's
Understood. And I just want to also mention too about Casamento Park. Many times during events, I've seen town, employees out, public safety, directing traffic, or even getting auxiliary Suffolk County PD or Suffolk County PD to help direct traffic. And as Wayne said, and just to reiterate, the alignment of the entrance directly across from Casamento Park makes a ton of sense from a traffic and a planning point of view.
And to my point, I think that is, if this was going to be approved, that would be the best way to do it. My point is, are we considering, when there are peak periods at Casamento Park, what that means, and are we considering how that works traffic-wise?
Actually, the concern might be the other way, of people that are looking for overflow parking coming onto this HOA site, so they don't want that either, so.
Thank you. Any further from the board? Thank you. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Brown?
I'm going to make a motion that we close the public hearing and reserve decision tonight.
Motion by Mr. Brown to close the public hearing and reserve decision. Is there a second? And by Ms. Moriarty, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions were reserved. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your time and attention.
Item 5 on the agenda, Planning Board application decision item, Wahid Kozdel, PB 2024-015, northwest corner of Main Street, State Route 27A and Carlton Avenue, County Route 17, East Islip, 23 West Main Street. Applicant requests a modification of Planning Board special permit conditions associated with TC 4183 in order to modify the hours of operation. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Ali Gavari, representing Wade Kerschel, located at 23 West Main Street, East Islip, New York, 11730. We are kindly requesting, as per our last hearing, we're kindly requesting a modification to the special permit granted to Boston Market in 1995 for the hours of operation from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. The Texas Chicken would like to operate between the business hours of 10 a.m. to 3 a.m. Monday through Friday, and 10 a.m. through 4 a.m. Friday through Sunday. Texas Chicken is a renowned franchise brand that currently has operating businesses in around 50 stores along the East Coast and many more throughout the United States. We are kindly, humbly requesting that the hours of operation be lifted to accommodate the business operations.
Why don't I go to Ms. Wozniak for a staff report, and then we can come back. I understand there's a question regarding the hours.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since the public hearing, the Planning Division has received several emails from residences expressing concern regarding potential negative impacts of late-night activity. As mentioned previously, this restaurant is located adjacent to single-family homes with a deficient buffer. In addition, the original special permit conditioned the restaurant to close at 11, and the applicant did receive violations for noncompliance with this condition. The nature and character of the immediate area doesn't coincide with late-night activity, as there are single-family communities right by the property. Based on this, planning would recommend the board grant the application subject to the attached conditions, which allow hours of operation from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. for dining, and then 10 a.m. to 1 a.m. for delivery and pickup orders.
That's the recommendation of the planning staff. You feel differently?
We are kindly, after we heard the news, I spoke to my clients, and they said if possible, that they could do deliveries until 3 a.m., just because they have other operating stores in the neighboring counties, Center Reach and Selden, that do phenomenal numbers, and they want to get to that stage, because currently they're just recently opened, and they're trying to build the business up to have it open for only deliveries and pickup only until 3 a.m. We understand that McDonald's down the block is open till 2, but they have a drive-through. That's a really negative impact on us that we don't have a drive-through. So we're just trying to serve the community.
Brown?
Yeah, when you comparing yourself to McDonald's, there's no residential around McDonald's. And I don't know what the stores are like out in Center Reach that you're talking to, comparing, but this backs up with residential, which it's a totally different game. So I won't support 3M for the deliveries. I don't know what my other colleagues want, but I think that the planning staff proposed is what I would support.
Okay.
So you said there are 50 other stores, right?
Approximately, yeah, in New York.
So just to help me understand, just to kind of quantify things, what percentage of your revenues come from the 11 p.m. to 4 a.m.?
So they were kind enough to give me the sales report that they do from 11 a.m. to 4 a.m. in the Center Reach location, which is close to $4,000 in just online orders. And an in-store pickup is $5,000, so roughly around $9,000.
Well, I mean, I was asking percentage-wise of a day's business.
Maybe like 20% off a whole week.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
Mr. Frugieri?
I happen to agree with my colleagues. I think 3 a.m. is too late. But I think the key here is not just the hours, but also how the business is run. You can create equal disturbances at 1 a.m. in the morning to the adjacent residents. I mean, my suggestion would be that maybe we stay with the 1 a.m. as planning has suggested, and give you a chance to operate a business and prove that you can do it without a disturbance. Maybe with the passage of time, if it's done right and there's no complaints, maybe we can come back and reconsider something.
Thank you.
I think that might be a fair,
I think that's
compromise.
If that's an option, then my client's open to that, to see if we could come back down the line and see if we could increase our time, by all means.
So I'm locked into the time as Ms. Wozniak has stated right now.
Okay.
Mr. Frugieri's point, if you're operating that way and it's working well with the community and you've built a reputation with the community and we're back before here, certainly you're always welcome to file something back before the board.
And I just wanted, for the record, just to let Texas Chicken, when they first moved in, they've been community outreach programs. They're sponsoring the Ducks. They've been doing local, the fire department. They've been helping out a lot of communities. So they wanted to put it out there that they are for the community and they'll do whatever they can to help the community and assist them in any way. So me personally, I know hands-on, they're helping our other board communities with a lot of distribution of food and giving out items for the brand. So I know that it's not a negative impact on that. So if with the board's permission, if we're able to come back at a later time, greatly appreciate it, and we could come back and forward and explain that.
Who is permitted to file an application before the board, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it all comes down to how those, you know, the drivers conduct themselves.
Okay.
You know, if they pull up to the side of the building, get out, they're quiet, they don't have radios blasting, they come in, they get the food, get in the car and go, probably not going to create much of a problem. But if there's loud music, talking, hanging out outside, there's going to be complaints even at 1 a.m. So.
Yes, thank you.
So if you're okay with the current covenants and restrictions that were drafted by Ms. Wozniak, we will,
Yeah, I mean, as the board member mentioned, if we come back at a later date, perhaps after it's good behavior and represent, maybe it'll be beneficial, and we'll come back. Thank you.
is there a motion? Mr. Moriarty.
Yes, I'd make a motion to grant the application subject to the attached conditions.
There's a motion by Ms. Moriarty to grant the application subject to the attached conditions. Is there a second? Ms. Cruz, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions, the application is granted. Thank you.
Thank you guys for your time.
Is there a motion to adjourn? By Mr. Moriarty, second by Mr. Brown, all in favor, opposed, abstentions, we are adjourned. Thank you.